All right, today I'm with Grover Norquist, President of Americans for Tax Reform, probably most well known for getting thousands of politicians to sign a no tax pledge, works all of the issues in Washington, is usually right at the tip of the spear on tax issues and many other things that I think a lot of Americans are concerned about. You know, we have a brand new administration, Democrats, so we're expecting some taxes to go up. He's hinted that he won't, President Biden has hinted that he won't raise any tax on anyone who makes $400,000 or less. That's a pretty high number. What are you hearing?
Well, first of all, he didn't just hint. We have him on videotape saying it 51 times.
Right.
No one who earns less than $400,000 a year will pay any additional tax. That's the promise. And he has no intention of keeping it, because he also says he's going to repeal the entire Trump tax cut, which for a family, median income family of four that earns $73,000 a year, that's a $2,000 tax increase to get rid of. $2,000 on a guy making $72,000 a year. So you know that he's already going to break the pledge. He also wants to take the corporate rate back up to 35 sometimes, he says, or up to 28 sometimes his staff says. But in both cases, higher than communist China. When he was president, we had a 35% rate, China 25. Why did money flow to China? Why did jobs flow to China? Because under Biden's America and Obama's America, they stole 35% of which company earned. And in China, they only stole 25%. So the socialists were less greedy socialists than the American Biden-Obama.
And Trump was able to bring...
Biden wants a tax on energy, on non-subsidized energy. He's going to subsidize solar and wind. It's going to tax real energy that creates real wealth and is worth what you pay for it. And that is a gasoline tax for every American. The idea that only people who earn more than $400,000 have cars or heat their homes or have air conditioning is nonsense.
Do we have any clue on what they're thinking about for a number on either a carbon tax or a gas tax or anything like that?
Sure. The carbon tax that Yeller, who we put over at Treasury, was the advocate for and designed, is about a 20% tax. So for $2, it'd be $2.40 a gallon. And it increased about 5% a year out into the future. So it was an automatic pilot tax increase on every single American, not rich people, every single American. It'll be interesting when Obama broke his pledge not to tax anyone who earned less than $250,000 a year. They sent out some almost intern from the Treasury Department to sort of mention it as a throwaway comment, and hopefully no one would mention it. The press didn't talk about it much, but we did.
I get the feeling that we're going to see the same thing here with the media kind of saying that, listen, we need infrastructure, we need $2 trillion in COVID money. What's the purpose of the government if we can't
steal your money when we promise
fulfill these projects?
The challenge for him is the lie. He lied his way into the presidency. This was the thing he said most often. This was the promise that he made again and again and again. There aren't any Democrats who won't raise taxes, including Manchin, in Congress today. And there aren't any Democrats who will say no to very expansive spending. Now, there's some point at which Manchin goes, that's too much. But that's a way out there number. He will sign on to a very large spending spree, which evidently he's going to, and be able to point to something that he reduced the damage on it. But you don't stand between the Democrats and all that spending that they want and remain in good standing.
An idea on how much people may feel? Is there a number? Let's say Biden's 2 years in, we'll be paying an increase in taxes that you can estimate?
Biden says $4 trillion over 10 years is what his goal is. So $400 billion more every year. And he wants to spend
spending or taxes?
That's taxes.
Okay.
Spending more is $11 billion. A trillion, I'm sorry. T's, not B's.
Yeah.
He says I'm going to spend $11 trillion more. He's 2 under that, and now he wants 3 for infrastructure. Infrastructure is a French word which means not roads, not bridges. Everything other than roads and bridges. If you meant roads and bridges, you'd say roads and bridges. But since you have no intention of doing roads and bridges, you say infrastructure. And whatever you built, they are infrastructure. It's like modern art. What is that? Infrastructure. That's what I see. Does it do anything? Infrastructure. But 11 trillion in new spending and 4 trillion in new taxes over a decade is what Biden repeatedly said during the campaign he wants. The folks who ran to the left of him in the party were talking about 98 trillion, not 11, but 98 trillion, the Green New Deal. So somewhere between 11 and 98 trillion in spending, depending on how much Congress wins and how much he wins.
And I saw on your webpage somebody who works or worked for the Keystone XL pipeline saying he's out of work now and what's he going to do? And it does, these things do have a real impact on people.
The Americans for Tax Reform is going out and getting people to do 15-second look you in the eye and say, Joe Biden killed my job, here's how. And a little hashtag, Biden killed my job. And we're going to be putting out as many of those as we can encourage people to make. I mean, we're not going to film them all ourselves. We just turn your camera on and tweet it with the hashtag, and we'll accumulate them and share them more widely. We did that for the tax cut when we came up with 1,000 examples in newspapers of AT&T gives everybody $1,000 pay increase. Somebody pays for adoption costs of companies.
That was real money.
It was real money, and they said because tax cut. We didn't include it if it was just good news that fell out of the sky. But when the company said because tax cut, the other factor here is when you raise the corporate income tax, all power companies, privately owned power companies, have to reduce the cost of your utility bill by the drop in the tax. They're not allowed to profit off a tax cut. And that's in the law in the states. So they had to put out a statement. When the tax cuts down, all the power plants put out companies, by the way, your rates are going down this much because tax cut. So we could pick those up off the internet and list those. And when taxes go back up on those companies, you will also be getting a note saying your utility bill is going to go up. And this is billions of dollars of increases in your utility.
Should people really care?
If the cost of energy goes up?
If their taxes go up. I mean, you have
Don't we
a government
owe it to
that
ourselves?
says, yes, the government says, no one's taking care of whatever the issue is. Teachers, vaccines, the roads, the bridges. The government has to do it. And it's going to cost you money. So I realize that you have the opposite view, but why isn't Biden right?
Because they're selling the same horse again and again. They raised dramatically spending on education per child, and the quality has gone down. Spending more money has not gotten us better educated children. It hasn't. So to double down and say we're going to pay the same teacher $5,000 more does not get you any more education.
And what kind of influence do you think groups like yours are going to have in Congress? You've got the Senate split. Would seem like you have an angle there, especially with Manchin of West Virginia, and you do have some moderates and fiscal conservatives in the House. Where do you stand?
I think we'll be able to stop some of the tax increases that Biden wants. Again, because Manchin and a couple other people recognize how damaging this is. If we focus on some of the taxes that it's too obvious how they hit individuals directly, that might be difficult for Biden. Although the pressure for a value-added tax, for a green tax, a carbon tax, which would become a value-added tax, because once you stick it on the energy sector, all the others, the energy people go, wait a minute, what about that? And so all the new taxes will go, just as they do in Europe, up to 15, 20% value-added tax, hidden sales tax. That's the ultimate goal of the Democrats right now.
That's scary.
It's very scary. It is everything they say they don't want. It's very regressive. But you can't get to 30 and 40% of GDP consumed by the government just taxing income. We've had 90% top rates and 28% top rates, and the money raised by that is about 20% of GDP. It's a straight line on the income tax. It doesn't seem, the economy grows faster when you lower taxes, but you don't see a bigger percentage of the economy being swallowed by government. You need a massive consumption tax. That's why they like a VAT in Europe. That's why they want the energy tax to turn it into a VAT.